Hey guys, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. This is a birch tree. It's actually one that I grew from seed several years ago. In fact, it was a volunteer and we dug it out, transplanted it into a pot. Pretty soon this fall, I'm going to plant this in the ground here at our new place. But before I do, I want to take some cuttings of it and try to make a few more birch trees. This is just your standard river birch, Betula nigra, and they are gorgeous trees. Obviously, if you've seen them with their papery type bark, they just look amazing even without the foliage on them. So they're really cool trees to have around. And they're also a really good tree for a lot of pollinators. And I actually have something really cool to show you. So take a look at this. So I was checking over my birch tree and just checking it to make sure that I had the right kind of cutting material to take, and I had enough of it to get a few good cuttings out of it. And I discovered 3 of these little caterpillars on it. Now these are actually viceroy caterpillars, and if you're familiar with what a viceroy is, it is a mimic of a monarch butterfly. It has the same coloration, it's a little bit smaller than a monarch butterfly, but it capitalizes on the monarch's ability or its poisonous quality, and it makes itself look like that to, make predators think that I am not interested in this dinner. So these caterpillars are chowing down on this particular birch tree that I've got. These caterpillars, the viceroy caterpillar, really enjoys plants in the willow family as well as plants in the poplar family. But as you can see, it can also eat other things like here on the birch tree. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to let these viceroy caterpillars chow down on this plant. It will defoliate it some, but not enough to matter at this stage in the year. These birch trees are very hardy type trees, and they've probably gotten most of their energy out at this point. We're in August, and so we'll just kind of let them go, let them do their thing, and then they'll turn into some pretty butterflies here to enjoy as they float about the garden. So for these cuttings, I am going to use a mixture of sand and core in these little cups here. They do have water holes in the bottom, so there's some drainage in there, and I've got 2 of them. I'll try to take about 4 cuttings and put in each one of these. If I can get a couple more, that's great, but I'm shooting for about 8 total cuttings today. I am using this rooting hormone. It's hormone 3, which has a higher concentration than typically what you get like with a green light rooting hormone and stuff. It has 0.8% indole 3 butyric acid. If you are having trouble with your cuttings at some point, upgrade your rooting hormone. Try to get a higher level of that. The 0.8, this hormone 3, is typically used for harder to root plants, trees, shrubs, stuff like that. So, and I put it into a smaller jar here so I don't contaminate the main jar. I just spoon a couple spoonfuls in this one, and then I'll use it for doing my cuttings. The other thing I'm using is a glow stick, and you don't have to use a glow stick. Anything will work, but I'm going to use it as a dipper just because it's about the right size. It was a random object I just found in the garage because, kids leave stuff everywhere. Now I like to start with my medium already nice and wet. So I'll let that go ahead and get started, and that'll soak right through. And in just a couple minutes, once it's all the way drained through, we'll be ready to start on that. Generally speaking, June and July is probably your best time to propagate these. I'm doing it in August. We do have until October with no frost, so I think I can probably get some decent rooting on these until then. But if I'm looking down here at the base of the plant, this is where I'm going to try to take the majority of my cuttings from, because I don't really want all these side shoots growing into just a big bulk of branches. I want to have this tree kind of with one long stem straight up there, because a lot of times when you have 2 or multi-stems, 3 or more stems off of a birch tree, at some point you risk the fact that they are going to split from that point. So if I have one strong leader and I can train it as I'm propagating it, that's kind of, optimizing what I'm doing here. So I am looking at this plant right here, and this cutting, I'm going to cut it pretty close to the trunk of the tree. Right here. So I am shooting for about a 6-inch size cutting, and that would probably put me about in this range right there. And I'm going to cut down below a leaf node right here, and we'll pull off some of these extra leaves along the way. And really, I don't want these extra shoots up here that are kind of small and flimsy, so we'll cut that out. And I'm going to cut just above this one right there. So there's my main cutting, and you notice the size on it. It's like a small pencil size. That's pretty good for it. This is starting to change over from greenwood to more of a hardwood, so we're kind of in that semi-ripe phase of the cutting. Whoops, drop that. Now at the very bottom of the cutting, I've got a node right here, and I don't see one on the back side. But what I want to do is I want to wound this, okay? And I'm just going to take and I'm going to cut into the cambium layer just a little bit and scrape down at the bottom. Create kind of this little slice off of it. And what that does is it exposes more of that cambium layer around here to the rooting hormone, which can help to increase the amount of contact with that rooting hormone and put more into the plant to give it a better chance at rooting. What also will happen is the cells in this area will start to callus over, and those callus cells will start to change into roots over time. So when you start seeing that callusing on a cutting, that's a really good sign that you're on your way to rooting. It doesn't guarantee it, but it means things are looking good. So on this cutting over here, this is a little bit softer wood right now, and I'm going to treat it kind of the same way. And I think I can get one more cutting out of this particular piece here. But I'm going to snip off these other side shoots here. And I'll go up the cutting to, again, about 6 inches tall. And we'll cut off the tip right there. And so here I'm going to wound that again, just like I did the other one. You got to be a little careful because you don't want to actually just slice through that node. And on these cuttings, we've already got our medium ready. It's nice and moist. So we'll take our rooting hormone and our dibber. First, I'll go ahead and make some holes here for the birch cuttings that we're going to put in. We'll do 4 relatively evenly spaced. And we'll just take this, swirl it around inside, shake off the excess, and you can see there we got some really good coverage on it. And we'll slide that in. And I'm going to push it down until it gets to that second node, so it has a good amount of the cutting actually under the soil surface. So here we go with this one. We'll do the same thing on it. And we'll slide him in right there. Now what can help is if you give it a little bit of a push around the medium, around the base of the cutting, just to make sure that it's getting good contact with that medium and has plenty of moisture. Birch trees are well known for enjoying moisture, so hopefully this will be a perfect environment for it. If you are having trouble with them, another thing you can do is to tent them, put some sort of a plastic bag over them that's elevated up, maybe with a couple sticks, or you can use a cloche. And a cloche you can just make from an old soda bottle, cut off the bottom and slide it right over your container. And if your containers happen to fit the exact size, that is the best situation. I don't currently have any right now, but I am going to put these in a controlled climate area under some grow lights once I've got them all done. So let me go ahead and get the rest of my cuttings. So as you can see here, I've got all the cuttings put together. There are 8 of them in this container. As I mentioned a minute ago, if you take something and cover it, that can help keep the humidity up and around it. I'm going to keep these under lights, under some grow lights, like the standard kind of shop lights that you would maybe use for starting seedlings and stuff like that, in a controlled environment where it's not going to get too hot or too cold. They do benefit from extra light, so if you can provide them some of that extra light from a grow light of some kind, that will definitely benefit their growth cycle. So hopefully we'll get some nice good rooting in about 8 weeks and then be able to put them outdoors where they can acclimate to the actual weather. So that's where we're at now, and stay tuned. I'll show you the results here and we'll do a time jump to when these have rooted. It's time for an update on the birch cuttings, and it's been about 16 days to this point. So to me it feels a little bit early to be doing this, but I've seen some signs that are pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what these birch trees have done so far. So you'll hear this a lot when people are doing cuttings. People will talk about how you're already seeing live growth and stuff happening. That can happen even if you don't have roots. The plant's taking energy from what it has reserved in the stem and everything, and it's putting on some new foliage from the buds. That is a positive sign. They're staying alive, they're doing something. But what I've noticed is that I think I've actually seen some small little roots beginning to emerge from the side. You can see where when I've watered it, it kind of created this little divot, this little depression in the middle of the pot. And I think it washed away a little bit of the roots or the soil that was around those roots. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to oversaturate this soil to make it really loose so I can check them without doing any kind of damage to the roots themselves. So I'm just going to give them a really good dose of water so that it will loosen up that soil really well. And I'll just very gently tease out one of these that I think may be starting to root. So I'm going to get it out just a little bit. Oh my goodness, look at that. That is a lot of roots. You can see there it's all kind of pulling out of that little clump of soil all around. And this is a birch tree cutting that's been only in this container for 16 days. I really thought this was going to take a lot longer than that. I was estimating 6 to 8 weeks, but that has done fantastic. Just check that out. So it does have a little bit of live growth appearing up here at the top of the stem, and it's looking really, really good. So I'm really pleased with that one. Let me check out some of these others here. This one's got a bit stronger of a leaf that's forming at the top, so I'll just gently, very gently start to pull it out, and it is rooted really well too. I knocked off a little of the excess soil, but check that clump out. That is really good. That's a really good sized plug. This is probably the perfect time now to go ahead and start putting them into some sort of pot so I can overwinter them. I'll probably need to give them a little bit of some sort of protection or keep them close to the house in order to do that. And that is done really well too. I'm just really astounded that these have done this so quickly. And out of that container, that's 4 for 4. And again, the rooting medium we're using is a mix of coir and sand, and just using old yogurt cups for this. So check this out here. This is the second container. We're getting some good resistance on these. Let me start with this one here because I can see the surface roots on it. There we go. There's another. And I'm just trying to be very careful because I do not want to damage the root systems. But I'm not going to knock off the excess stuff. I'm going to put it into whatever kind of potting mix I'm going to do here in a few minutes. And I'll leave as much of that clump. If it comes off gently, that's okay, not a big deal. But that is really good. Really, really good. So, and these were mid-late summer. Wow. That one did really well. And I kept them under lights. The light, I believe, really, really helped them to get some good rooting. And I feel like that the leaves that are starting to emerge up here did not actually start emerging until after they had some good roots. So it just worked out really well. And check out the thickness of that stem there. That's probably about perfect for this. And out of those 8 cuttings, every one rooted. That's great. For my potting mix, I am just using a mixture of what you call soil conditioner, which is really just finely ground up bark shavings, along with about 1 part of compost. So it's 3 parts of the bark shavings to 1 part of the compost for this mix. And so I've got my tables a little bit on a slant here because I'm just in the yard on a couple sawhorses. But you can see that the water is going down toward where I've got the cuttings at. I'm just wanting to keep them wet so they don't get exposed and dry out too quickly here while I'm doing the transplanting. So I'm just going to use some regular old pots that are left over from other plants that I may have gotten over the years. I kind of save all my pots and everything. And I'm just going to fill up those pots for the most part. And then I'm going to come in and grab my cutting. See, that guy looks really good. Really happy with that. So I'm going to set that in to my pot just like this and then just fill up around it. And then I'll give it a good watering here in a couple minutes once I've got them all put together. Just like that. And that should do really, really well. It's a well-draining soil. It should retain some moisture as well at the same time, so it won't get over waterlogged and stuff, and it'll still be able to get plenty of oxygen to those root systems, because oxygen is really important because they bring that in through there. You could drown a plant if it's just sitting in water too long. So let's go on and get all these done and take a look. And so here are our 8 birch tree cuttings that are all well rooted and ready to grow. My next step is to put these in a kind of sheltered location for a few days so I can acclimate them to the outdoor temperatures. We are having some drought-like conditions lately in the area, so I need to make sure that these get plenty of water and moisture and aren't sitting in the direct sun, at least until they are good enough to kind of stand on their own roots, so to speak. And that's essentially how you take a birch tree and create lots of extra birch trees from it. It's a really pretty simple process, and it did really well. I'm really amazed at how quickly it actually rooted. So from this tree to 8 extra trees now, I've got 9 total birch trees from one. So that's really great. And to update you on some other things from the video is the viceroy caterpillars did create a chrysalis. One of them did anyway, but I never got to see it emerge. We missed that. We saw a monarch chrysalis actually emerge. We saw a black swallowtail butterfly emerge, but we missed this one. So unfortunately, you could see them. They were kind of some neat looking caterpillars, but we just didn't catch them this time. So I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. I really appreciate you watching. We'll catch you next time here on Growing the Home Garden.